We all know that Japan has an immense creativity and a lot of times out of this world imagination that is considered bizarre to some people, and video games are no exception to that. JRPGs are well known for its rich storytelling and having wonderful casts to the point where even those outside of the gaming community are familiar with these characters. The most notable are the Persona series, Tales, Atelier, and how could we not forget the Final Fantasy series? Hi, I'm Catharsis, and I hope to spread my love for video games and everything around it. Join my unending pursuit of happiness and knowledge, hopefully finding you the right game in the process because gaming is for everyone, if they find the right one. I want to talk about my favorite series so far that people may not be familiar with, or at least have not played it. The Trails series, particularly Trails of Cold Steel, or some of the community may call it the Erebonia arc, and a bit of the succeeding games after that. To keep things simple and spoiler free as much as possible, you are stepping into the shoes of Rin Schwarzer, a young man entering his first year at Thor's military academy. And from there, you meet your classmates that will eventually be your main party members throughout the series. It may seem too typical and some stereotypes slash characters can be observed. However, I would argue that it will get better throughout the series. The characters' backstory and their development is something that I love to see as the story progresses. It fits since they are still young, lacking in both experience and knowledge of the reality of life. A story of self discovery, facing their fears, maturing, and just having a wider perspective in life feels rewarding a slow burn for you. It's a perfect scenario that puts you onto their perspective where it feels like you also learn about the world and its truth together. Them realizing their ideals and dreams, how powerless they felt, and despite their limits, they should act on what they believe in, on whatever possible things that they can do at the moment. It's also heartwarming to see that after their graduation, they went through their separate ways, knowing what they want to achieve, and have their own respective goals, not just serving the military or whatnot. Another note that I love to see is that the world feels alive and changing. Pieces of lore are seen through books and newspapers, NPCs that are also fun to interact with due to the consistency in writing where they may talk about certain situations or even remembering what you did for them, even after jumping to the succeeding game or parts of the series. Even your schoolmates go their own ways scattered throughout the world are fun to see. Mind you that there is a timeline for these games, and while it isn't necessary to play every series, story references from past games are thrown out that can really flesh out the world more. However, I do think it can't ruin the experience completely. The next entry point after Cold Steel 4 is Trails into Reverie, and what I would consider both a treat to the fans and a good opener for the next series. Seeing all the cast and protagonists from the previous series up to the Cold Steel series joined together in one game is fascinating to experience. Meeting them and seeing their interactions is fun despite the crisis that they're facing at that point. This game also tries out having three protagonists having each individual route that gives more immersion to the player on how they are able to resolve the crisis at hand. The next series is Trails to Daybreak that features a new set of protagonists, different areas with change in the combat system, and a big improvement on the animation department. It also moved forward from having a younger protagonist and featuring a bit more mature storyline. I would quote that it certainly feels like a fresh air from having a younger character's ever growing perspective to already knowing the depths of reality. The story also helped that your group are walking around the quote unquote gray area of the society where you're basically a handyman that can work for the guild, the police, the society, or even the mafia. They've also implemented an alignment system where how you handle tasks at hand will shift and have a little impact on the options you have later on in that game. It is not mind blowing or have a very huge impact on your gameplay, but it's also fun to have a small option to give out during the task and have a different ending. The Trail series is such a fun ride due to its immense engaging and ever-growing storyline that up to this point, there are still pieces left that are waiting to unfold. Questions that are still left unanswered, and forming these questions makes you fall into the rabbit hole of lores behind it. Theory crafting to the basic questions of power levels is just a fun side of the community discussions. With the release of the remake of the first game of the Trails in the Sky saga just around the corner, it certainly is the best time to dive right into the world of Zemuria. I hope it sparked an interest for you despite having so much yapping but too little of the information given due to the nature of the game having a lore that while it is large at hand, but not to the point that it is too hard to grasp. If this isn't enough to spark the interest or still aren't sold, this won't be the last video that I'll be talking about the game, so be sure to stay tuned for future videos since this series has a huge place in my heart and one of the few games that I truly intend to finish from start to end. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for future game reviews and a lot of talk in general about video games.